Welcome to Radio Veritas TV.
You did something wrong.
Say it again.
Radio Veritas TV.
Radio Veritas TV. Okay.
Hi, I'm Emma.
Hi, I'm Reese.
And we are Catholic and we go to St. Teresa's School.
Hello, my name is Nonzizo Nkosi. I am a Catholic. I wasn't originally born a Catholic, but then I joined Catholic because I love the religion, and more especially as I went through it and then learned of their teachings, I began to love it even more. And also because of the way that I feel when I'm in church, there's this sense of belonging that I feel, this warmth, and I feel and I believe that it's the love from God.
My name is Charlotte Swartz, and I'm not a Catholic, I'm Christian, but I follow and respect the Catholic values. I go to a Catholic school and I really respect the Catholic values and the way that they follow life.
Hello everyone, my name is Zenani Mashinini. I was born Methodist. I converted into Catholicism mainly because I went to a Catholic school, Macaulay House, and I began to enjoy Catholicism and how we would go to Mass and how we'd praise God.
We are Catholics!
You are watching Karibu Nyumbani.
Karibu Nyumbani. That's welcome home in Swahili here on Radio Veritas TV. My name is Khanya Litabe, and I'm so glad that you're joining me this afternoon. It's a beautiful day. It's another moment to talk about the faith and about the journey home. Welcoming those who have come back home. Just like the prodigal son, we welcome them home. We're not saying they were prodigal at all, but we're just saying thank you for sharing these inspiring stories with us. And my guest this afternoon is Raygon, who comes from El Dorado Park originally, but he's going to be sharing his story of faith. And we welcome Reagan. Good morning, Reagan. Afternoon, rather.
Afternoon, yes.
And how are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's my absolute pleasure.
You must have heard about Radio Veritas TV, and you thought, I wonder, what they're going to be asking me about now.
Yeah, I have Radio Veritas. That's what I'm aware of.
Yes.
I didn't know you guys actually had a show on TV.
And now you are one of the very new guests on the Radio Veritas TV channel. So we welcome you, and we're looking forward to your story. First of all, I think just the spelling of your name, Reagan, is very different.
Yes.
I think it says that you are unique in many ways.
Yes.
And even the spelling of the brain is different.
Yeah.
What's your story? Who is Raygon the Brain?
So, 38 years old, Raygon the Brain. I was born in Eldos. Mother and father still very much alive. Thank God for that. I have a brother, so it's just the two of us. We grew up in the Ebenezer Congregational Church. So my mother, grandfather, everyone, Ebenezer, and we were very church going. So we went to church every week. If there's events at church, we would go. So going back to the beginning, I was baptized in the Ebenezer Church, received communion in the church. I was confirmed in the church. I was with the Ebenezer Church for 27 years. Yeah, 27 years. And
So in the 27 years, as you say, you were baptized, you were confirmed and so on. What makes Ebenezer Church different? Maybe let's just start there. Paint a picture for me, for somebody, I've never been to an Ebenezer Church.
Okay.
Maybe just tell me about that.
So because we were in a colored community, we had Afrikaans services. So all the prayers we needed to learn in Afrikaans. So when you go through, like with the Catholic Church, we have catechism. With the Ebenezer Church, we had the Sunday school. So every Sunday, but it wasn't different groups, all the kids were together, and the teachers had to teach us from the little ones, the grade ones, up until the ones that needed to be confirmed. So we all learned the same way, but everything was done in Afrikaans. So your prayers, the hymns. So for me, when I moved over to being a Catholic, I had to readjust everything. We had the same prayers, more or less. So the Our Father, the Apostles' Creed, we had those prayers, but we had them in Afrikaans. So we received communion once a month. So
okay.
at the beginning of the month, we would have. So that's just to say we are starting the new month on a clean slate. So when I got to the Catholic Church, it was like every Mass we're having communion. And I think that drew me to the church. It's like, you are receiving God and you are making your new week fresher than the previous week. It was interesting.
Yes.
I actually enjoyed it.
So once again, just take into the 27 years.
Yes.
In the Ebenezer, you spiritually, then you were rooted in the church.
Yes.
You were. What else were you doing in terms of as part of the ministry in the church?
With the Ebenezer Church, not much. I was a regular church goer. Used to go to church every week. Sometimes by force. My mother would force me to go. But as I grew older and I started working, I said, no, I'm going to take that step. I'm going to get up early on a Sunday. Even if we partied the Saturday, I'll get up early the Sunday and I walk to church. And that feeling that you get for that hour and a half sitting in church, it always resonated with me to say that you are going to be cleansed when you go out of this building.
Yes.
And I always thought, do I go to church for the right reasons? And then eventually, as time went on, I started reading the Bible more to get my own understanding. And as time went on, I just said, no, I need to get to that point where the relationship I have with God needs to be solid.
So before that, now you're going to church on Sunday.
Yes.
Your spiritual life during the week and so on, and just living in a community like Eldos.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, you went to school, you had your friends in school.
Yes.
And surely you were not talking about the Bible in school.
No.
With your friends.
No.
There were other things that you were doing.
No. So I'm sure, as you're aware, the way our youth was back then, there was drugs, there was alcohol, there was things that drew people in quicker than their spirituality could. So peer pressure was always there. That has never gone away. There's always been a situation where people want to put you in where you have to do something that you're not comfortable with. And as I grew up, I'm no saint. I have done things that I regret, things that I'm ashamed of. But at the end of the day, there's one person I needed to ask for forgiveness. I asked God for forgiveness. I believe He forgave me, because if He hasn't forgiven me, the life that I have now, I wouldn't have had it. I would have been somewhere where I do not picture myself. So there was peer pressure, there was all those things, like the gangsterism in Eldos it was not that bad, but it locked the youth in. Me, I was on a totally different wavelength. I was always by myself, even though I had a brother. He's 2 years younger than me, but he had his own friends. I had 1 or 2 friends. I wouldn't call them close friends, but I would always meet up with them. We'll watch movies, or just do things indoors. So we wouldn't go out and go look for trouble, basically.
And when you say the things that you've done that would you say it's things that you would regret?
Yes.
Okay.
So those, if I have to take, there was drugs involved, there was assaults, there was fighting, lots of fighting. And yeah, I just one day I just decided, no, let me move away from that. Because the things that my parents had this picture of me, like, this is our firstborn, he is the righteous one. And my brother, the younger ones, are always the ones that get targeted. They are the naughty ones. No, with us it was the other way around. So I did things. I was a problem, but I did it discreetly. Nobody knew. The only person that knows now about most of the things that I did is my wife. She knows because I tell her some things trigger memories, and I tell her that song reminds me of a time when I did this and this. This situation reminds me of something. So those things, I mean, if I look back at those things that I did, I could have changed it. I could have been the bigger person. But as time grew on, I actually went back to those people that I hurt, the ones that I could actually find, and I apologized to them. Told them, like, I know I wasn't a bully. Let me not put it. I was the one that was on the receiving end. But I didn't bully people. It's just the things that I said to people and the things that I did made them a bit offensive, and they didn't like me for that. So the day when I went to them and apologized, and it's like, okay, you are the bigger person now. And I try to live my life like that. Be the bigger person.
Yes. And talking about the fighting and the assault and so on, do you know why you were fighting?
I think at the time I was just in a different space. My mindset was all over the place. You know, you in your teenage years, you reached puberty, and now your hormones are all over the place. You don't know what to do with yourself. So there were times where there was anger. I was angry a lot of the time, like most of the time, and that it actually came out at school where people used to see, okay, don't mess with Reagan. He's a psycho. He's crazy, and I didn't want people to see me that way. I mean, even now, if my brother and them and the cousins talk about those years, the stories the things that we did, and they start talking about the fighting, and then I look at them and was like, was that really me? Was I that person? And then my kids look up to me, it's like, our dad is like this sweet, quiet guy. And when we hear these things, like, is that really him? And I don't want them to know about that. I don't need them to know about what I did, because I don't want to, like, put that on them to say that this is what your father did and this is what you are going to do. I want them to be better. I want them to be different than me. So I just want to thank my wife, Leonie. She actually changed me a lot. Yes. That's where we get into why I converted to being a Catholic. We'll get to that.
And just looking at that, you know, why were you angry in hindsight, looking at that? Do you have any idea why you were that angry?
Not really. It's just, like I said, hormones. I was an angry teen.
Proving a point.
Yeah, I just wanted to be rebellious, but rebellious in the sense that nobody sees what I'm doing. They need to know my name, but not know what I look like. And everybody knew me. I mean, people know me. They see me as this guy that always smiles and is always happy. That's what I want people to know.
Yes.
That's who I am now. If you had to meet the Reagan between ages 14 and 18, no. That's not the person that I like, me personally.
Yes.
So it was more, we didn't grow up in a situation where there was poverty or anything. My mom worked, my dad worked, we were well off, we had things. But it was just, I don't know, just rebellious. I wanted attention because I was always alone.
Yes.
And because I have a sibling, I don't know why I felt alone, but I always felt alone. And that's why I always like to surround myself with people now. Because now I don't want to go back into that hole. I want to stay here, not in the spotlight, but I want to be seen.
And that's Reagan the Brain, and he says yes, he doesn't want to really go back into the hole, so to speak. And so this is Karibu Nyumbani on Radio Veritas TV. Welcome home. We'll be hearing more of Raygon's story in a short while.
You are watching Karibu Nyumbani.
I was in a very dark space. I was even thinking of ending my life, but he managed to calm me, and then through counseling, he introduced me to the Daughters of St.
Yes.
And then I joined. It was not an easy road because at some point I lapsed. I lapsed in the Daughters of St. and I even lapsed in church.
So we've spoken about your anger. You've said, that you were young and so on.
Yes.
But you also said that you wanted attention. You spoke also about, now you're looking for those people that, you felt that you hurt and you asking for forgiveness
Yes.
from them. What makes you now do that? I asked you earlier, what made you angry and so on. Now, what makes you go back to the people and so on?
Okay, so there was a situation, not a situation, it was a celebration basically. So my granny, she turned, I think at the time it was 70, if I'm not mistaken. So it was in the Eastern Cape. So we had this little get together. So my parents, my mom and her siblings, they booked this hall and we had to, like the cousins, we had to go and clean and do all these things. And later that night, so we had to, this was the Friday, so we had to clean up the hall and everything. So the party was scheduled for the Saturday. So we went to go clean up the hall and everything, and my uncle, so my mother's youngest brother, he said, no, let's go to a club because tomorrow we're going to work, we're going to serve people and everything, the family. So we decided to go to the club with him, and no, he knew like the cousins that we like to fight because we're from Joburg and the Eastern Cape people don't get along so well. So we were in this club having fun, and then he says there's somebody there that owes him money. Now one of my other cousins went, they started a fight. There was 6 of us against our whole club. I'm talking 100 plus people. So it was all out battle. So we were outside of fighting, and I don't know, this guy just came up to me. I saw him coming and he pointed a gun in my face. Like square, I was looking down the chamber of that gun, and he pulled the trigger and it just clicked. And then that's when I knew I am on somebody's good graces here now. I am one of God's anointed. And that was the day, I think from that day I was 17 or 18 years old. That was the day I said, no more. I don't want to live this life anymore. Gangster, I can't say I was a gangster. I was naughty. Being in this life wasn't for me anymore. I mean, staring death in the face. And yeah, it was just, I never thought I would see that day again. I mean, I 2 or 3 years ago, I saw that guy. And I just looked at him. I couldn't say anything. The man that pointed the gun in my face. Like, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't talk to him because we were on the receiving end of the fight. So I couldn't go up to him and apologize. But the way the world worked, that man is not in the situation he was back then. I mean, he's on drugs now, he's not doing well. And I couldn't go to him and say, look, I remember what you did. I don't even know if he remembers what he did. But yeah, so for me, forgiveness, God's forgiveness and forgiving others, that's what opens people's eyes. That's what opened my eyes. Because if you are in the mercy of God and he says, I will protect you until your dying breath, he means it. And that moment, I thought that was going to be it. And till this day, I've changed my ways. I'm a happier person now. And I have my moments of rage with taxis. I'm not going to mention taxis from which area, but yes, I have those moments, but I calm down. I calm down fairly quickly. My wife says I have an anger issue. I don't. I have a temper problem. I don't. It's just when things don't go my way, or if I'm just in a bit of a bad mood, things don't go, then my responses to certain things will be different. But all in all, I think I'm a fairly good guy. I think that's why she married me. So, yeah.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. I want to see you. That's exactly the message I'm hearing here. Seeing and looking down the barrel of a gun, that must be quite something. We get more out of Reagan the Brain after this.
We are Catholics.
You are watching Karibu Nyumbani.
Where have you seen God's mercy in your life? And how have you used that mercy then to convert and make sure that others come home? That's what we're focusing on today in this episode of Karibu Nyumbani, Welcome Home, with Reagan the Brain, who comes from El Dorado Park, and we welcome him once again. Thank you very much for sharing your story so far. You grew up in El Dorado Park.
Yes.
You've had your story, we've had your fights in the Eastern Cape, your anger issues and so on.
Yeah.
And amidst all this, you were still going to church every Sunday.
Yes.
And you then read the Bible and so on. Let's just go back to that episode after almost being short dead. How would you say then that transitioned now to you recognizing the Word of God?
So it was, like I said, I was 17, 18, so just about to finish with high school. And during that, so from the time I matriculated, I think it was September the following year, I got my first job. And this job had so much things that I needed to do. I didn't have time to make a mess or to do things that's wrong. So I worked 3 days day shift, 3 days night shift, 3 days off. By the 3 days you are off, I was dying. 6 days of working 12-hour shifts. That 3 days that I'm off, I would spend a day and a half sleeping just to recover. And as time went on, I worked for that company for, I think it was 18 months. And then I started working in the bank. And when my then friend, I can't say she was my wife or girlfriend, she was my friend, they started working around mid-2007. That's when I met her, and she was actually training with one of my friends, and he introduced us and we just clicked. I didn't know anything about her. We started talking, we started dating. I think it was 2 years after dating, we got engaged. And then I said, nope, I'm marrying this woman. By that time, I was still in the Ebenezer Church. And I actually went to Mass once with her. So I drove from Eldos to Boksburg. The Mass at St. Francis starts at, that time it was 8 and 10. So I drove from Eldos 6 o'clock in the morning just to get into Boksburg and just to be here so we can go with her to Mass. So I sat there in Mass, and because I didn't know what to do, because Ebenezer, I haven't even thought about the Catholic Church by then. And then I saw things happening. By that time it was the late Father Jerry. So he was part of my inspiration. So the way you would bring the message across from the gospel, it interested you. It's like you would sit there and say, okay, that makes sense. I read the Bible. If we take the New Testament, the Gospels, if you read through it, everybody has their different analogy of it, so they can analyze it in a different way. I had my own way of analyzing that, and having somebody like Father Jerry that would explain to you in a certain way, it's like, okay, now that makes sense. As time went on, Father Jerry spoke to me. We had like conversations about faith. He knew I was from the Ebenezer Church, and then he asked me this one day. We did, I think it was marriage preparation. So we were busy doing that, and then he asked me, would you consider converting to a Catholic? I wanted to answer him, and then he said, no, go pray about it. And I said, okay. And he says, next week we'll talk about it. We'll see if God gave you your decisions.
Yes.
And true enough, yeah, I actually went home. I started doing my own research. So I wanted to find out, how do you convert from one denomination to another one? Even though we are all Christians, but how do you convert from one church to another?
At this point, you're not having any conversations with your wife. This is your personal.
Yes, no, I didn't tell her by that time. I think it was closer to the wedding, before we got married, closer to our wedding. And I said, okay, I've decided I'm going to convert to being a Catholic. And she was like, are you sure? Yes, I want to. And I know when it comes to marriage, the wife goes to the husband's church. This husband went to the wife's church. Not because there was a problem with the Ebenezer Church. Not because the Catholic Church is better than the Ebenezer Church. No. It was, how confusing would that be? By that time we had one child, we had a son. How confusing would that be? Daddy wakes up, Daddy goes this direction to the Ebenezer Church, Mommy goes this direction to the Catholic Church. It's not going to make sense. I know my wife was born a Catholic. She was born into a Catholic family. Our children are Catholic. Okay, not yet. They are baptized.
Yes.
So eldest one, baptized, first Holy Communion. So he's doing confirmation next year. The little one, he is baptized. We had a daughter. She sadly passed away in 2015. She was also baptized in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
So we are trying to bring our kids up in that. And I'm walking that journey with them. Last year, December, was my 10-year anniversary for being a Catholic.
Wow.
So 2012, I converted. So I went through the RCIA program. So I did that. So for 12 months, I received, because I was baptized and because the Ebenezer Church was recognized, so it was just basically a welcoming.
So no, then you're being baptized again.
No.
Yes.
So for me, it was just, they just welcomed me into the church.
Yes.
And then I had to do First Holy Communion and confirmation. That I did 2012 December. And last year, 10 years. And I must say, in that journey, I have taught RCIA, New Catholic, teaching
RCIA.
people that want to convert over. Me and my wife, we did that as a unit. I think it was RCIA. Now I'm doing baptism. So now I teach parents how to raise their babies in the Catholic Church, how to let them receive their first sacrament. So that is a big thing for me. And I think all of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Father Jerry. I mean, he guided us through. Me and my wife were just normal parishioners. Because she was a proclaimer back then. She used to do readings and that. But with me, I would sit in the pews and just follow Mass, do what we're supposed to do. And then Father Jerry came to me and said, I need your help with something. I need you to tell your story to people that come from another church that are not in tune with their faith and make them Catholic.
And what story did you tell?
Would you like to advertise on this channel? Contact us on the number below. Coming up next.
So we walk that journey with the parents. So I want the parents, especially to the listeners of the station, the viewers, we are our children's first catechism teachers.